So, when the last Star Citizen Live ended, much of the discussion revolved around bugs, awkward moments, and especially the overall presentation. Some people call it a disaster, myself included, but a few others defended it as an honest look at development. Now, as far as I'm concerned, after giving it some thoughts overnight, I came away with a very different conclusion. I think that CIG should do more of these streams. In fact, I think that they may have accidentally stumbled into one of the best ways to communicate development progress with the community. Now, that doesn't mean that the show was good. It wasn't. It was not structured, it was boring, mostly due to a lack of proper hosting, and the attitude of one person in that live stream was particularly insufferable. But the concept behind it absolutely deserves another chance, and I'm going to tell you why. As always, quick words on our giveaway here this month. Thanks to my Patreon and YouTube members, I'm giving away a pack. It's a Shiv and a Basher all together. All you have to do is to subscribe to the channel and comment to any videos posted this month. I'll give away 20 entries on the Wheel of Names, automatic entries for Patreon and YouTube members. Good luck out there. So, for years, one of the biggest criticism towards CIG was that most of the presentations and demonstrations were carefully curated. In those demos or showcase videos, developers know exactly where they're going. The route is planned in advance and the features are rehearsed. In other words, the footage is designed to showcase the game at its best. These are the videos you usually see at CitizenCon or in an Inside Star Citizen episode. There's nothing wrong with that, of course, every game studio does it, but it means the audience never really knows how representative those demonstrations are of the current state of development. This Star Citizen Live was different. There, the developers simply played, and everything that could go wrong seemed determined to do exactly that. The AI behaved, well, like they do in the persistent universe. Some gameplay interaction failed, the objectives became confusing, there were bugs, there were moments where nobody seemed entirely sure what was supposed to happen next. In other words, it looked surprisingly familiar because that's exactly what many of us experience when we log into Star Citizen. Unfortunately, the stream didn't prove that development is progressing well. It proved something much more interesting. The developers are dealing with the same problems that we are. More importantly, these weren't public servers struggling under heavy load. These were internal development builds running in CIG's own environment. In other words, CIG were playing the game on their own private servers, and yet many of the same issues appeared, and that matters a lot because now we've established a baseline. For the first time, we have an unfiltered look at what the developers themselves are working with on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, one stream doesn't tell us much. A few more streams, however, definitely would. Imagine CIG continuing this format, say, once every month. The developers load into the latest internal build and simply play without any scripted missions and obviously no carefully edited showcase, just an honest session demonstrating whatever is currently available. Over time, those streams could become incredibly valuable. I mean, think about it. If AI starts to behave more consistently, if mission flow becomes smoother, if interactions stop randomly breaking, if the developers themselves spend less time fighting the game, then we will notice it live. Progress would then be visible not because CIG would have shown us a nice demo, but because we would actually see it. That would be a far more convincing way to demonstrate progress than any roadmap update or marketing trailer. Instead of asking us to trust that things are improving, CIG would actually be showing us. Another reason why I think that this format is interesting is because it felt authentic. Of course, nobody expects an internal development build, still in alpha, to be flawless. In fact, pretending that it is often creates more skepticism from a community that is already wary. Showing something imperfect tells the audience that they are confident enough to expose reality. That kind of transparency builds credibility. And yes, of course, there will always be people who will point out bugs, and yes, clips will circulate online, and yes, you can always count on social media to have fun with the failures and some content creators to tell you how much of a scam it is. But That's a worthwhile trade-off if the long-term result is a community that feels it's getting an honest view of development instead of carefully controlled marketing. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the presentation. Because while I think the concept has potential, the execution didn't have any potential. This simply wasn't a case of bugs making the show difficult. The stream lacked structure from beginning to end. Questions felt scattered, so much so that even though they were questions, they ended up being inaudible. Conversations drifted because the host failed to direct it and let all hells break loose. Important systems were not properly explained, and unfortunately long periods passed where the audience wasn't really learning anything. In the end, gameplay became the show rather than the vehicle for explaining development. That's where hosting becomes incredibly important. Being a successful Twitch streamer and having a large YouTube channel is one thing, but hosting is a completely different skill. Guiding a live discussion with eventually a turbulent participant is an entirely different ballgame. Keeping viewers engaged while developers are focused on playing is also a skill. And right now, from what we witnessed, I am afraid that it looks like Oli simply is not there yet. There were too many missed opportunities to steer the conversation towards useful information. When gameplay was shown, the discussion slowed down with it. When something interesting happened on screen or was shown on screen, like a new feature such as the new rifle that's coming with Alpha 4.10, there wasn't a follow-up question ready. A good host is not just another participant. A good host should constantly think ahead. What is the audience wondering right now? What question should be asked next? What feature deserves more explanation? What information can only these developers provide? That is the role of the host. The host shouldn't simply react to what's happening on screen, but actively guiding the conversation so every minute delivers value to the audience, and that is particularly important during a 2-hour live stream. This stream too often felt like developers were playing a game while someone happened to be sitting with them, while instead it should have felt like a conversation that happened to include gameplay. And here, I'm afraid that Oli completely failed to gauge the scale of the task that was ahead of him before starting this live stream. In the end, I genuinely hope CIG doesn't look at criticism surrounding the stream and conclude that raw developer sessions are a mistake. I think that bringing back this format was one of the best ideas they've had in years. The only thing that needs changing here is the presentation. Keep showing internal builds, keep letting developers play, and especially keep exposing the rough edges. But pair that authenticity with a host who controls the pace, asks the question the audience really wants answered, and turns a casual play session into an informative discussion. Do that consistently, and you will see that these streams could become one of the most valuable windows into Star Citizen's development, because they will let us see genuine progress as it happens. And when we eventually start noticing those same improvements arriving in the live servers, we'll know exactly where they began. And that is all for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for sticking until the end. A big shout out to everybody who's been subscribing recently. The channel has, progressed quite well, so thank you so much, guys, for joining the channel. And a big shout out as always to my Patreon and YouTube members who help keep the lights on, especially since I am blacklisted for making these videos. So thank you guys, really helps a lot. If you want to support the channel, you'll find the links in the description down below. Big shout out to Dr. Frobin, Socard Assistance, The Key to the Crusher, The Rise, and Zero Crusher. I've been the Eradicator, and I'll see you guys in the next one.